All right, good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is March 4th, 2024. It is our council workshop meeting. Marianne, can I get roll call?
Mayor Young.
Here.
Vice Mayor Brandon.
Here.
Councilmember Painter.
Here.
Councilmember Sartori.
Here.
Councilmember Bradford.
Here.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a presentation from Jupiter Narrows Conservation Alliance on protecting and restoring the mangrove islands and surrounding seagrasses in the Jupiter Narrows. And Sue Pinella is here. I don't know if you want to, if you're presenting or if you want to introduce. I know you have a couple people you're here with tonight.
Sure, thank you. I'm Sue Pinella from 375 Beach Road in Tequesta, and I'm the founder of the Jupiter Narrows Conservation Alliance, and with me is Theo Kaboski from the Ocean Conservancy, who's our partner in this project, my son Jeff, who's doing a documentary about it, Thomas Heller, who's on our board, and then several interested residents. So thank you very much for having us. We're excited to share what we're up to. So should I just go ahead?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this is a project that's really been on many of our minds for years and years, but I would say it's really taken off in earnest over the past 10 months. And we're excited to share with you because a lot of residents have gotten really interested in this, and as representatives of our residents, we wanted you to be aware of what we're up to and hopefully get your support. So let me just start. We're going to do some, I just did brief introductions. We'll go into a little more of that in a bit. Let me talk about the context of the project. First of all, the area that we're looking at is from just south of the bridge by Jib Club Marina, all the way up to north of that island that you see on the lower part of your screen. So just getting into Coral Cove Park. My history goes back to this area over 50, or just about 55 years. My grandmother was the very first condo owner in the second building you see off that corner, Lamar. And so as a young child, I'd be there out on her balcony looking at what was at that time a long, very lush, very full set of mangroves. It's been an area that our kids have enjoyed. We've all, we walk around these islands, we paddleboard, we swim, and see lots of life, but they're dying. So I looked out my window. I was doing a project for our building, an anniversary project, and looking at old photos. And while I knew the mangroves were dying and really suffering, it wasn't until I looked at these pictures that I just was completely blown away by how different they look and how much they've deteriorated. So that's just from the mid to late 1990s. Back then, you couldn't even see directly out to the navigational channel. There were hundreds of birds in these islands, lots of manatee grazing at their roots. And now, as you can see, they're a very measly set of mangroves. This is looking further south towards the lighthouse. You can see the same exact vantage point, how different they look. Then looking north towards past the Cliveden, which is the last building going north. That was one big island, and now it's split into two, and the smaller one is on its way out. And then I have this aerial photo that really shows you the difference. If you look at the very bottom island, that extended all the way under the bridge. And look now, we have one very small little bit left on the north side of the island and a small piece left on the south part. The second island has disappeared altogether. The third island is probably a third or a fourth of the size that it used to be. And the northern one, you can see the deterioration there. That's from 1977 to 22. That's an aerial shot that I got from FWC. Another aerial shot just shows you how full they are. And then what we really noticed was when residents all started talking about it was, I would say in the last decade, this deterioration has accelerated. So this is only a 6-year period, and they've declined significantly. You see a lot of boats tied up to them. You see people crawling on them. I mean, people love the area, and it is so beautiful, and there's so much to look at, but we have to learn how to help it live and not destroy it. This is from the water side. Just to give you an idea, when I took J.P. Brooker out from the Ocean Conservancy, his first reaction was, oh my goodness, this looks like a hurricane hit them. you can see just the destruction from the water side as well. So, I looked at those pictures 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and there was something that just hit me. I said, I can't sit here and do nothing. So I picked up the phone and I called FWC. FWC sent someone out along with the Palm Beach County Environmental Management Resources, and they snorkeled the area. And I was very encouraged because what they told me was, yes, they need to be saved, and yes, they can be saved. It's going to take some work, it takes some time, but it can be done. And for me, that led to a 2 to 3 year quest just to talk to anybody and everybody who knew something about preserving these things. So they brought up scientists from University of Miami. I talked to Peter DeWitt at length. I've continued to talk to him over the years about what's happening around the lighthouse, the conservation efforts there. I talked to the Jupiter Inlet District. I had conversations with Tom Bradford, and also talked to the Nature Conservancy. So really we were educating ourselves. At the same time, there was tons of chatter in all the condo buildings. People were saying, good grief, what's happening to these islands? And so we had lots of informal meetings. We wrote letters to FWC to appeal for something to be done. And then we had a meeting a year ago in our lobby at Lamar and had FWC come speak. We had Palm Beach County came and spoke. Peter DeWitt spoke. And we had a lot of residents show up. And so my takeaway from that was, okay, I'm not alone here. There's a lot of people who want to see something happen, experts as well as residents. So at that point, it was like, how do we find the expertise who can really help us? I mean, the FWC folks have been great. There's been a lot of people who have been great advisors for us. But I was very fortunate at that point in time to be introduced to J.P. Brooker, who runs the conservation efforts in Florida. And we formally partnered in May with the Ocean Conservancy to help run this project, and that's been a game changer. They bring the science, they bring the expertise, they bring the experience, and so our efforts have really accelerated with their contributions. So let me just invite Theo up to introduce himself and the Ocean Conservancy so you can get a sense of what we have working with us.
Hi, nice to be here with all of you. As you mentioned, I'm Theo Kowalski, so I'm not J.P. Brooker. He's the other tall, bearded guy at Ocean Conservancy. But I'm still super excited to be here tonight to talk about this partnership. So real quick, just to give you some context of who we are and how and why we're engaged in this work. So Ocean Conservancy is the nation's oldest nonprofit dedicated to ocean conservation. And we've been operating here within the state of Florida for just about 40 years. And mangroves and seagrasses are really at the centerpiece of a lot of the conservation work that we do here in Florida. They provide some really, really vital services for both the environment and animals here within Florida, but also people in coastal communities. They help provide habitat and nursery and food for iconic species here in Florida, like the manatee. They help to filter the water and improve water quality in regions where they're abundant. And really importantly, they help to trap sediment and stabilize shorelines. So they're really important to the structural integrity of our coastlines and our waterways. So we were really excited to be connected with Sue and learn more about the project. It's always really exciting to us to see a citizen-led restoration effort, especially here in Florida. Because it always comes from a place of love and care for the community, which just really helps the project go far and really create a lasting impact. So we were more than happy and excited to work with Sue, to connect her with some of our networks and some of our resources, to try to see what we can do to implement some solutions to help the mangroves and the seagrasses here. And what's really exciting for us as well is if we can continue this work with Sue and really try to find some impactful solutions here. That's stuff that we as an organization can take to others in the state as well. Connect with other residents just like Sue who want to see what they know and love be protected and safeguarded. So we can try to actually help bring these solutions and replicate them in other parts of the state as well. So we're super excited to see this work go forward and grateful to be a part of it. So thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Theo. as I said before, as soon as we joined forces with the Ocean Conservancy, that really accelerated our efforts. So the first step was to raise more awareness. So I don't know if you saw the piece that was published in the Palm Beach Post, but we had a piece there, and also in the Invading Sea, which is a consortium of all the major newspapers in Florida. We've been developing media materials, and as I said before, Jeff's developing a film on this to raise awareness. We've continued networking, and frankly, a lot of these organizations you see listed here reached out to us when they heard about it. So it was very exciting, and it's been great to network with a lot of local organizations and businesses to gauge interest and potential partnership opportunities. We coordinated with complementary efforts, so we've been talking a lot with the people who are trying to lower the speed limit. That's not the focus of our group, but certainly it will help our efforts. We've been talking to the enforcement people. We went out on a boat with the FWC enforcement people to share what we're trying to do and have them sort of understand it a little bit better. We did a survey of local residents, and I have to say, we got 62 responses, and 87% of the residents right there along the waterway said that they thought this project was extremely important or very important. We asked them other questions. 75% of them said they were willing to help in some way, donate money. So again, just making sure that the residents were aware of what's going on and supportive of what we're doing, and that we understand what the questions and concerns would be of residents. Phase 2 is where we started to get real. So phase 1 was getting ready, phase 2 is getting real. We hired an engineering firm, Taylor Engineering, to conduct a natural resources survey. That was conducted in September. We interviewed 3 different engineering firms, and we ultimately selected Taylor because they have a great reputation. They do these projects soup to nuts, and they have experience right in our backyard. So they're the ones working with the Bureau of Land Management across the street, or across the water. They're the ones who have worked a lot up in the Loxahatchee, and we felt it was really important to get an engineering firm in who really knows the ecosystem we're talking about. The results of that, I just can really quickly go through this. This is the area that we actually had them survey, and the results came back that we have extensive seagrasses in the area, 5 different kinds of seagrasses. 3 of the 4 mangrove islands are on the verge of death, I would say. They're really in bad shape. But the encouraging thing is they came back and said, you can save these. These aren't beyond. You know, some neighbors said, is it too late? Well, no. The engineering firm is saying it's not too late. You got to act quickly, but it's not too late. So that's given us a lot of encouragement to keep going. We continued to engage stakeholders. One of the highlights here was we were invited to speak at the ESERT meeting, which is the East Coast Estuarian Restoration Team. It's a group of any businesses, individuals, engineers, scientists, nonprofits, municipalities who are involved in restoration. And it's an opportunity to get them all in the same room and collaborate and share ideas. And so it was an honor to be able to present at that, and we got a lot of really good interest and feedback. And then toward the end of phase 2 is where we are right now, and that was to professionalize. So we just, January 1st, incorporated a Florida nonprofit. We're waiting for our 501c3 status, but just Friday announced publicly through a media day the Jupiter Narrows Conservation Alliance that you can see here. So we're developing a website. We're really starting to professionalize because we will have to raise some money, and we want people to know we're serious, and you know, we've got some real good expertise behind us. We also raised $25,000 just from a handful of neighbors who were very eager and excited to help get this off the ground and help pay for the next phase, phase 3, where we've just hired Taylor Engineering to come up with some conceptual designs. So that's where we are now. That's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for Taylor Engineering to come back and say, this is what we think would be the most effective solution in your area to save these mangroves and seagrasses. So we're really excited about that. We've been talking to the Jupiter Inlet Foundation about their buoy program that you've probably seen around Sawfish Bay, SUNY Sands, and Bird Island, I guess it is. And so we've been learning a lot from them about their buoys and how effective they've been in sort of just cautioning people about the seagrasses, and they've seen some real growth in the seagrasses. And then our next phase will happen as soon as we get the conceptual designs. We'll start getting into engineering, design, and permitting, the construction piece. In terms of timing here, we have a huge incentive to get moving quickly, because with the Bureau of Land Management doing the restoration literally right across the water from us, there's an opportunity for us to potentially share some costs. So if they're in the water at the same time we are, we're using the same engineering firm, we might be able to share some mobilization costs and so forth. So we're really excited about trying to work out that timing. And at that point, obviously, we'll have to go out and apply for grant money, because we have no idea what the cost will be until we see from the engineering firm. So that's really it. Theo was just going to share a little bit about how we'd like to invite you all to support our efforts and what that can mean.
Sure. So really just to tie it all up, we were excited to be here today just to kind of bring you all into the loop and share some of the work that we're doing. As Sue mentioned, there's still a lot to do. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to engage if this is something that any or all of you are interested in joining efforts. We would love to have follow-up conversations. You know, our door is always open to talk more about this project. We're happy to keep you informed as we start to figure out what some of those solutions might be with Taylor Engineering. Right now in the process, we're trying to continue to gather support for the project. So potentially having a letter of support from you all I think would go really far. So we would invite you guys to consider a letter of support for the project. But yeah, at the end of the day, we just want to be a resource for anyone who's interested in this effort. So we definitely invite you to have some future conversations and join us in finding some solutions for these mangroves and these seagrasses that make this area really special. So.
Do you have any questions for us? I'm not sure what the format is here.
Yep, no, I'll open it to council. Any comments, questions for Sue and team?
Thank you very much for being here. I love your logo, by the way, so it's awesome. And for all the work that you guys have put into this. Do you have a vision for like what we get to like phase 3 and phase 4? Like what is going to be the installation? Are you going to plant mangroves, or you want to slow the speeds down, or what exactly do you think it's going to look like?
We're focused on the restoration, the protection and the restoration of the mangroves. So while we are supportive of the speed limit issues for a lot of reasons, safety as well as safety number one, I would say, and we know that will help our efforts. That's not something that's not in our mission directly. We don't know yet what Taylor's going to come back with, but verbally they've indicated that the first step is to stabilize them. And that is some kind of wave attenuation. So we don't know what they'll suggest. They're looking at any and all of the different technologies available. There's anything from kind of the riprap, the limestone rocks that they're doing by the lighthouse, but also Palm Beach Island has them around them. There's some manufactured kind of solutions that we've looked at. There's sea hive, there's reef arches, and various things that we've asked them to consider, any and all. And so they'll come back and tell us what's possible. And it'll be partly dependent on what they found in the seagrass survey, because you can't displace the seagrass by just throwing a bunch of rocks on them.
And the last thing, you made a comment when you were doing a tour, when somebody said it looked like a hurricane went through there. Do we know, or has it been a comment made on some of the last several years of storms that we have had? There's been some legislation that has been enacted and altered and changed based on a cone of activity. Can any of this be the severe deterioration have anything to do with any of the recent storms, or is it just wear and tear gradually over the 50 years or so?
You want to?
Yeah, it's sort of all of the above. The storms will definitely exacerbate the damage that's happening here, and when you couple that with the fact that there is that constant sort of pressure that's being applied to these areas, it kind of all comes together to create what you saw. So.
Thank you. Great effort, and I hope that somehow the village will get behind it and support it.
And Taylor Engineering did say they think the primary issue is the wave activity, because you can see from you couldn't appreciate from the pictures, but from the water side, they're all slanting away from the water. So it's pretty clear something, and a lot of our storms have been coming from the east, so that would suggest maybe they push them the other way. And so I'm not a scientist,
Yeah.
but I'm just telling you what Taylor Engineering
Yeah,
does.
well, thank you for what you're doing in your entire group and all the neighbors.
Sure.
Thomas Ellis, because I know I have to identify myself to cross the towers. To your point, JP said there was a phrase that came out of the Everglades restoration project that was restore historic mangrove coverage, those 4 key words. And so that would be what he said to me and Sue the other day, if you can wrap your mind around that. He said, that's the kind of vision that he had in mind.
Okay,
How we get there.
thank you.
And it's likely, once we stabilize them, there may be some opportunities to plant as well, which we'd be really excited to get the community involved in, get Mang, get the school kids, whatever. But
Thank you.
No, I think this is awesome. I was actually, my wife's from Naples. I grew up here, but I've driven by those so many times, and I've even told her, I'm like, I remember going under the bridge. That was the one that always stuck out to me. And I guess I hadn't really realized how much it had actually gone until you see the pictures side by side there. But yeah, I mean, it seems to me like it's probably a lot of the boat traffic, if I had to guess. It'd be fantastic, and as a fellow boater, I think most people could get behind this, but I know the no wake ends, like when you're coming under the bridge, it's right there and people just gas it. And if there is any, I'm sure that is incredibly difficult to get a no wake moved or anything like that, but I would love to see that as a potential objective. And then you mentioned some, like, I was going to mention the reef arches, but I guess you already talked to those folks. Generally, I would be fully in support of either the letter you issued or some version thereof. I think this is a very well worth effort, and I'm really happy you guys are tackling this, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
thank you so much.
And just real quick, if you don't mind, because I think at one point, I think it predates most of us up here. Wasn't there some law passed that was to make it a no-wake zone, but then like the Marine Industry Association fought it? I don't know if you can give us kind of a recap on that and if there's current status on that.
Tom can jump in here too, but it was passed, but then there was some challenge to it, and so it got rolled back. I don't think it's dead. I think there's still some discussion, and they're re-looking at that. I know that it.
Jessica knows the latest, but the original reason it was denied was the marine industry said that the determination to make it, I forget, it was slow or no wake, that determination was based on subjective criteria as opposed to objective criteria. So my understanding is that since that court ruling, that FWC has been working on objective criteria to make a change.
Sounds like it could be it.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to keep things orderly, so do you want to do your public comment now? Are you going to have other comments, you think, tonight on this topic?
Oh, no, I was going to give you guys the update
Sure,
of
okay.
what it
Yeah, I
is.
just want to keep it a little orderly. So, yep, go ahead.
Okay.
If you wanna give a quick
I was just going to
update.
say that at the FWC meeting 2 meetings ago, they had a law that they had to pass, or a rule amongst themselves first, that applies to all jurisdictions essentially. And they used us as the example in their presentation. So their lawyer came out afterwards and had spoken to those of us that were there, and basically thanked us for hanging in there with them, and this is the process. And he said at that point it would probably be at least 6 months, but we would be the first to have this new rule applied to our area, hopefully. But I'm sure we can expect pushback still, but hopefully there was enough support and with this new rule they'll be able to get it through. So it's only 0.8 of a mile. It's not far, and it's I think 6 minutes that it adds to the voters. So we can all do it. But she is right, because of course as the boats have gotten bigger, we've added engines, and just to get on plane you have to go 25 miles an hour, because otherwise you're pushing a 3-foot weight, which nobody wants either. So that's the issue.
Okay, thank you for the update.
I also just I did go to the Beach Road Association meeting last month, or 2 months ago, and Tom Reiner came and spoke from FWC, and he feels pretty confident that this speed limit thing will pass in May, but it's only for weekends and holidays. And we all know that there's 5 other days of the week that you gotta, that's all I know.
So, if I may, Madam Mayor, I think I went to one of the first meetings that Sue called it was in the Lamar condominium. And the main takeaway that I want to share with you all now is that FWC, as well as Palm Beach County made it very clear that they felt it was super important in their dealings in Tallahassee and their dealings with the county commission and any regulatory agency, whatever, that it's extremely important for a local municipality to issue a sign of support for the project. And what I wanted to let you folks on the council know is that I've probably done 3 of them before, similar type projects like this in the Lake Worth Lagoon off of Palm Beach Island. And all that it boils down to is that you issue a letter of support, which I think they have a draft in our backup, and all that will happen there, I think that will put it on their page on the website that you're a municipal supporter. And from time to time, the council may be asked to write a resolution of support to let some agency somewhere know that we're real about it, or write a letter of support basically stating similar to what was in the one that we have in our backup. That's all it is. Palm Beach never paid a dime for any of these restoration projects. They just endorsed it and supported it and issued letters to that effect from time to time.
Okay.
So I would appreciate, you mentioned, could we keep you guys updated as we get anything back from Taylor Engineering? And I would love to be updated just so we can keep tabs on what's happening. Then it also saves your time from having to go through these big presentations each time. I think the biggest challenge that you guys are going to be facing is the reality of just the population today and the modernism. So boating back then, it was not as common. It was harder to get a boat. The boats are getting bigger. And that's even aside from the wake zone thing. I'm not even talking about that. Just you could have a no wake zone, but the amount of boating traffic. And I think your biggest hurdle to start thinking about is how do we manage the public respect of it? Like you said, people stopping, because it's going to take time for them to grow. So I'm eager to see what they come back with on their ideas on that. I want to commend you, though. I mean, it's amazing what you've done so far. Thank you. I think we're very blessed to have you in the village, and your neighbors are very blessed to have you to step up. You've gone through the correct channels and the procedures. You've contacted the right agencies. You did your research, you set up a nonprofit to take charge. I love that. So thank you for doing something and taking charge. It's hard to find people to step up and try to do something about it and be the leader, so thank you. I would support your effort moving forward and just keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing, keep researching, and just keeping the public in the loop.
Great, and just to follow up, what's the best way to keep you all informed? Like once we hear back from Taylor? Emails?
Email?
Yeah, send it to Jeremy and he'll distribute.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's our leader. I'd go through him first because then he can distribute from there.
Yep.
Will do.
And just kind of echoing what Vice Mayor said, the recreation part of it. And I mean, I grew up in this area, frequented the beach there. And I mean, I think paddle boards weren't even as common, right? Everyone owns a paddle board now. So I think you just have a lot more people, not even on boats, but just, on paddle boards and kayaks that are climbing on them too. So I think a big part of it is going to be, the recreation, people just staying off the mangroves too, and any ideas to manage that. Because it wasn't like that back in the day when I was a kid hanging out over there. So again, just really fantastic what you've done. It's people like you are why things get done. So just really pat yourself on the back, and I know you still have a lot more work ahead of you, but you've done a lot so far, so I trust you'll see this through to the end. So I'm more than happy to do a support letter as well.
Thank you.
Cool.
And one of our initiatives is to reach out to these recreational groups. We've already started to talk to some fishing guide groups. We've talked to Blue Line, who rents out the kayaks and the boards. They're very supportive. I mean, we all love this water because it's so clear and because there's so much wildlife. So if we don't do something, that's going away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, cool.
thank you so much. Appreciate your
May
time.
need help someday on signage and buoys.
I was gonna recommend some signage, that'd be
Yeah,
good.
well, actually,
Yeah.
FWC, the enforcement people, when we took them out, they had some ideas about, why don't you put some signage here or buoys here? I mean, so I feel like we've got a lot of good people with good ideas, and we just need to go through the process now.
What is the average, does anyone know here or out there, the average turnaround time to receive an IRS 501c3 letter?
I think we're expecting it any day.
Any day.
JP filed that, he's got a legal background, and so he's been helping us with that process. And when he filed for it a month ago, or a month and a half ago, he said they were turning him around within
Yeah.
6 weeks.
Oh,
So
good, okay.
I would expect any time.
That's great.
Yeah. And even money we collect now, which we have, it's, they make it retroactive to the first of the year, once we get our 501c3.
Excellent.
So I'm
That's great.
confident.
She's on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And is there any other public comment? No other public comment? Okay, and then Keith, real quick, I know on the letter template, I believe you guys had a spot where maybe we could say something personal. I don't know, like, a lot of us did grow up here, so it might be impactful if, you know, you have your elected officials putting in kind of a personal statement. I mean, is that something we could do, and then would we have to vote at our meeting next week on the letter? Or
My
how?
suggestion would be if there's council consensus tonight to move forward with the letter, we can put a draft together. It can certainly include the comments that you suggested, and then you could have that on your consent agenda next week to adopt the actual document.
Perfect.
Great.
Okay. So yeah, if anyone wants to add something personal, letter, just email it to Jeremy, and then we'll see it next week. All right. Thank you, guys.
Soon.
Thank you.
We got, agenda deadline is like tomorrow or at 5 o'clock today, so.
Well, we
send
may
a
have to
reminder later
breach that, but we could walk it on.
Okay. Moving on, agenda item 2, discussion on coastal resiliency. Jeremy?
So this conversation, you know, obviously with a lot of the damage that was seen over in Jupiter and the Colony, you know, we were asked to kind of task the staff with some things that we can do. I have that in the backup or at the very end of this presentation. The other part of it was just take a step back and ask to just kind of define and what we've done in the past as far as development, just to maybe educate and go through this with council for discussion. As you guys know, you guys don't get a chance to talk about this very often unless you guys are here. And so this presentation is just kind of twofold, is that to kind of give an overview of what's going on over there, but also some of the steps or things that the village has done or can do in the future. All right. So just the overview of this, beach roads, you know, most of that's been 40 or 50 years. As you guys seen some pictures of that over there. There are 7 parcels along the beach road on the east side, the Atlantic side, that fall within the village of Tequesta. The property lines, they're in yellow. It kind of looks black on the screen, but those are property lines. If you see, the property lines go all the way into the beach. That's all private property. That's not village of Tequesta. It's not public access beach. The green line, which is the mean high water level, mean high water line, that's public, has the right to use that beach seaward of that line. So in theory, the public doesn't have access landward of that line. So that's what that line is. That's what's represented. And so this is kind of a graphic of that. And that comes from the public use doctrine. The next line that we see is a seawall. So the black is a seawall. Out of all the properties over there, the 5 out of the 6 have a seawall in front of them. Only 400 does not have a seawall. It has the dune. The 1979 line is the blue line. That is where the properties are vested to. They were built to the 1979 line. So as you guys know, as developments have come forward and they're redeveloping, they are vested to that line. The 1997 line, so from time to time the state will update the CCL line for new construction to be built, and that's the 1997 line.
So, I'm sorry, can you go back? So that red line is now if you were to build a new building,
That's right.
got to
New
stay
construction.
west.
Right, and so most,
Okay.
you know, it's all developed over there, the village of
On
Tequesta.
Undeveloped land, you mean?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if it's previously developed, they don't have to.
Okay, so if they knock down and rebuild, they don't have to acquiesce?
I'll get there too. I have
Okay.
another slide. So the other part that we went through with some of the recent development is the floodplain. So the floodplain, you know, we have the blue, you see some checkered boxes. That's the proposed, that's the X zone. So you can build in the X. If it's straight blue, you can't build in that. And so the 300 building, when it originally came for approval, they were looking to get, it's a little bit zoned in, it kind of defines the zones. So the zone AVE, that was the zone that they fell in when they went to do the development. They tried to get a LOMAR to get the map revised so it showed that they would be in the proposed X zone. They were not able to get that. FEMA rejected that, and so they had to come back for approval. Zone X does allow you can build in the Zone X. So this is a example. This was a 300 building that was originally approved in 2022. You can see that they're all the way up against the 1979 coastal construction line that was allowed. They can do that by right on the 1997 line. But however, when they went to get their LOMAR, and this is a side view of it, if you see kind of where it drops off right there, you got the 1979 line. It's roughly about 25 feet from the seawall to the 1979 line, give or take, all approximate. When they came back for approval, because they did not meet the floodplain, the VE, they had to back up from that. They moved the building 55 feet to the west. So they had to back that from the property so that, and if you want to see a side view of that, the 1979 line, you'll see that they're pretty far off it. I would guess that some in the ballpark of 75 feet to 100 feet off of the seawall now with that approval in 2023. The next property was a 250 building. They did not come in for this, but the original site plan they had that they submitted, you'll see that where they were off the 79 line. They were back, you know, several feet, but they were still kind of touching that VE flood zone. So when they did their analysis, they came back for approval. You'll see that they backed it up even further from that. So they're way off the 1979. They almost meet the 97 CCL line. They're vested to the 79 line though. So the other thing that came up with the EAC is they wanted to, you know, educate the public on the where they fall on the 79 line. There is already state statute that says they have to disclose that, and the seller has to disclose where they fall on the coastal construction line. There's also legislation working through right now, and I believe it's set for the House floor, or was, that there's going to be new legislation that requires a disclosure of prior flooding on a property. That is not currently required by sellers, but there is some legislation working its way through that. I'd have to get an update on it, but when I checked a couple days ago, it was set for the House floor. A couple of things that the Village of Tequesta has or is doing: the beach road guidelines, the turtle protection ordinance, the additional landscaping requirements that we had with the beach road guidelines. Currently, the village is undertaking a vulnerability study. So when we talk about, you know, just coastal resiliency, not necessarily always the, you know, the coast, but, you know, we're doing a vulnerability assessment for the, you know, the Tequesta as a whole. Something that the village could consider, you know, is consider try to get grant funding to analyze the coastal issues and recommend mitigation strategies. That will take partnership with outside jurisdiction, because we do not have jurisdiction of that north of the 400 building. That's Palm Beach County. So it would take them to be a part of that with us, or do it for us, and we would, you know, reap the benefits of that. The village has consulted with the Department of Environmental Resources Management on the beach renourishment, or we'll say dune renourishment. It's more of a dune renourishment than it is a beach renourishment. The village has consulted with a coastal engineer just recently. The village is currently discussing a living shoreline ordinance. We've updated the building code. We now require milestone inspections. The next slide kind of just defines what those are: an inspection of load-bearing elements, primary structure members, primary structural systems. That came from the Surfside incident. Most of the coastal communities all have adopted this ordinance. The Village of Tequesta was kind of one of the first that followed suit with that. basically says that, you know, at 25 years of age, they have to get a certificate that says that they've got that milestone inspection, then every 10 years after. So that provides some additional, I guess, protections from, you know, erosion on those buildings over there. Going back to this, we are seeking a kind of a focus group of experts in the area to hopefully just brainstorm with from the village's perspective, and then hopefully partner with other municipalities, engage lobbyists to seek more home rule consideration along the coastal communities. As most of you guys know, you know, the state really, we'll say, prioritizes, you know, property rights over some of the environmental issues that we've been dealing with. And so I think, you know, if we really want some change, I think there should be something done at the state level. So hopefully we can get some other coastal communities to buy into that. You know, listen to a recent webinar was that there are some state and federal programs that offer buyouts. I mean, I knew New York was one of them. They do buyouts of some of these things, some of these properties that have been challenged by sea level rise. You know, I don't know that, you know, these properties would, but it's something for us to look into. I don't know that Florida offers that, but maybe that's something at the state level that should be considered. I know in Houston, if you guys remember several years back when there was a lot of flooding over there, there was a program that bought a lot of those houses that were in that flood zone. So, you know, maybe that's something the state could look at in the future for some of these properties. Membership to the Florida Shore and Beach Preservation Association, you know, as we started kind of digging into, you know, solutions, we found a couple of these organizations that have some, you know, some knowledge and also maybe some push that can help with some of these state issues. And then seek information from the Preservation Office of Resiliency Protection. I know that our lobbyist has a connection there. They are going to try to get them to come down and try to do a presentation and even look at our coastline. So with that, I mean, you guys don't get a lot of chance to talk about this, but I mean, open for discussion and even direction from council.
Thank you, Jeremy. Council?
I got no direct comments, but glad to see we are looking into this and addressing it. But you know, a lot of the harm is done. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of how we handle these next several developments that are coming our way. But that's all I got.
So I like the outline that Jeremy did about the things we do and or can do. But Jeremy, one of the things I'd like to suggest to you is that, you know, Palm Beach County is a huge government, and they have resources that we will never have, and they have contacts and more influence than we probably will ever have. And so we are very lucky that they are the ones that handle beach renourishment, because you don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. My recollection is in Palm Beach, it's $3 to $5 million per beach mile to do renourishment, and they're averaging somewhere between $15 and $20 million a year just budgeting for it. So it's great to maximize our relationship with Palm Beach County. However, in thinking about this meeting, I do remember the following. The town of Juno Beach, the town of South Palm Beach, and the town of Lantana, they're all small like we are, and they seem to have a different relationship that lies somewhere between where we are today and where the town of Palm Beach is today, where they are coordinating and working, but they're not really spending the money that Palm Beach County ends up putting on the beach. So maybe you could find out from the new manager at Juno Beach and the managers of those other, how they describe their relationship, because I remember them being very involved and lobbying together, but Palm Beach County was the big provider of the funds and the entity getting the permits. And you know, after you talk to them, and if there is in fact a special type of relationship that's sort of out there, then I would definitely be in favor of us joining the Florida Beach Association, because they do have a lot of information, and even more than what us non-members can access on their website today.
Mayor, for Jeremy, the village, what beachfront property do we have direct input over when it comes to maintenance? We don't have the buildings 100 through 400, correct?
Right, that's private, that'd be private property.
Private, right. So our involvement is on the front end, or our input on the front end as far as asking them where they're going to build, design features. Part of it, our conceptual presentation process is where we can really start to dig in with some of these things. But what happens once that LDR is, or the development order is issued? It's fortified law, right? And we can't go tell them what to do, nor can we direct Palm Beach County to strengthen their beaches, correct? Looking at just from an erosion standpoint.
Right, so, those seawalls have been up there 40 or 50 years, like, we can't compel those, I mean, and I'm gonna say this very lightly, so, as, if you could look at, incentives to bring back the dune system when the next one comes, meaning, or you get more density, more height in order if they take that seawall down, because you can't, unless they volunteer to do that, that process is going to be, tough from a legal standpoint. But I mean, we could look at incentives to work with the developers on something like that. But that seawall, it's been there for 40, 50 years. I think our biggest part with the county is advocacy. When we do hear, concerns from over there, making sure the county's aware of it, make sure they're doing it. And I think they've been responsive to the county. I mean, they came out here within a couple weeks and had a project going, and so I think our part is to continue to advocate, for the beach renourishment or the dune renourishments or whatever's appropriate. I mean, we don't have the staff that, that does that kind of analysis, but, they do, and make sure that they're aware of it and they're working on it. Just this picture, and I forgot to mention it, I know a lot of reference to JIC and what they're doing. I mean, they are spending like $500,000 on their beach renourishment. I think they're going to try to get some grants right now. They're just taking out a general fund. But if you look at the property lines, they actually own the beach in front of those houses. We don't. I mean, it's all private property that's there. And so there's a big difference between JIC and Tequesta. And so it's hard to, I think there's only, and Tom may know, because I think Town of Palm Beach was one of those communities that own one of the only communities in Palm Beach County that own their own beach, and JIC is one of them. I can't confirm that, but according to them, their manager and their mayor, that they are. And so there's not too many communities that do. That's why you see Palm Beach County has that jurisdiction typically.
Okay, thank you.
I think we've talked about this round and round and round. I agree with Mr. Bradford. I think relationships that we build with the county, and more importantly with the state, are really probably the best thing that are going to help us. And I tell our public this when I'm sent and I see it on social media, the pictures of our beach and the water slapping on the wall. You all have to send that to our state representatives, because those are the ones, a lot of times, those are our roadblocks. We can only do so much, but it's a bigger beast, this whole concept of restoring our coastline. So we have to make sure that we are not just keeping it super local in our tiny little 2.2 square mile village. We have to make sure that the whole state of elected officials are aware and really put pressure on them so that they can help us and everyone else living on the beaches. How do we enact some lawfully legal ways to enhance our coastlines, but without, touching property rights and just building smarter? The seawall, I've been out to that seawall that we have on it's not our beach, but in our area. The height of it makes me concerned if we required them to remove it. It's very tall. If we just had them take it out and put in dunes, just engineering wise, I'm concerned, how would that affect even a building that's even by the road? So, again, it goes, for me, it's much bigger picture. It's a lot of logistics and engineering that go into it. And I know with the state, they have certain regulations they have to get approved when they put a certain amount of density, is a wall like that going to hold that? I do support anything that our developers can do to enhance their seawalls that are currently there. Anything that absorbs waves can help protect the buildings. I just don't think there's anything we can do today or tomorrow that's gonna make a huge difference. Again, I kind of go back to everybody just needs to really pressure our county and our state officials and really keep them educated. Because again, a lot of them go up to Tallahassee and then they don't spend too much time here anymore. So we gotta make sure that we're updating them and keep them in the loop. DM them if you have to. You know, you don't have to send an official letter if you're a public resident. DM them and bombard their staff. That's the best advice I can give you. Get the news involved and just get attention on it. Because they're the ones that are really making our, like Mr. Allen said, our legislation. They're the ones making those laws that a lot of times hinder us. So we got to really just build that relationship with them. And I know our mayor is always up there advocating for those things as well as home rule. So, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Welcome. Just a couple things. I know, I mean, we're talking about our strategic plan. We're going to update on that next. I know the EAC is going to update us on their recommendations for a strategic plan. So as we talk about these, we might want to consider, you know, if coastal resiliency is something we want to add. I do want to reiterate, because DERM did tell us is, you know, you can't do a building at a time. You have to do a whole, you have to assess the whole coastline there and dune system as a whole, which is why we kind of had, you know, can we look for a grant to have a coastal engineer do an assessment of the, you know, the entire strip where there's development in our municipal boundaries. I mean, you know, Jupiter Inlet Colony is a prime example because the house that didn't have the hardening is one that got destroyed, right? So that's a prime example. You can't just, like, it'd be nice to, like, try to get a developer to work, but you really have to look at the whole thing. So, you know, looking for grants or talking to the property owners and figuring out, like, how is there interest? How could we, you know, make it a goal and make it come to life and do an assessment of the whole run there? So that's one thing to consider. The Florida Shore and Beach Preservation Association, do you know how much that is to join?
Jay, did you get that number?
500. 500.
Okay, I mean, that's, in the scheme of things, not too much, so I would even, like, take that from my discretionary funds for 1 year. I mean, I think it's a good way to keep educated. I know Durham's on it. Is it Andy? I think
Yep.
Andy's from
Yep, he's on
the
the
rep from
board.
Palm Beach County. But again, just another way to stay informed. And then I think something else, the buyouts, I know Jeremy brought that up, it's FEMA buyouts. Those happen after a disaster usually, so they're, you know, reactive instead of proactive, but I think they're usually just in, like, special flood hazard areas. So, like, could we be proactive and identify those areas and have a plan of, like, these are potential buyout areas and, you know, get it to our state legislators now so they know what our plan is, should there ever be. So again, just kind of doing as much as we can, because it is tough because our hands are really tied since it's not, you know, we don't own the property, it's private property, and then Coral Cove is the county. But just thinking of those kind of things, like how can we be proactive? I mean, buyout of those buildings is going to be a lot of money. So, you know, is that really, you know, ever going to happen? I don't know, but at least we could be proactive and have a plan and have that outline. And then there's examples, you know, throughout the U.S. of, like, cities that have, like, comprehensive waterfront plans and coastal resiliency plans. And then there's this concept of coastal managed retreat. And there's been successful examples in the U.S., but they're smaller towns and they don't have this really high density development. And the concept of that is that the beach will, like, naturally realign itself and move back, and so it's managed retreat, like moving the buildings back with it instead of, you know, holding the line with structural engineering, which is what is happening here. But even, you know, a lot of people that have worked with those projects and are savvy in that arena, they do say if when it's high development like this, it's contentious. You usually need to buy out the land, and so again, like, that's really not something that would maybe ever be feasible. So it's kind of my 2 cents, just with some research I've done. But it is a tricky situation because of the high density, you know, high development there, and that's not really having so much control. So, all right, and that open up to public comment.
Marisa Perry?
I
Marie Superior. I live in the country club. The pattern that we've seen is the developers have appropriated rights that are not theirs, rights to the beach that impact the quality and health of the beach, because the people in this process who are supposed to be defending the village interests consistently failed to provide the kind of defense that is necessary for this process to produce good results for the long term. That's why we're in this mess. Now is not the time, I don't think, to waste taxpayer money on focus groups and studies as suggested in the backup. We don't really need more studies. The cause is very clear, and we've already heard from experts what it is. Developers have built too close to the beach, and not just the buildings, but the pool decks in particular. And they've destroyed and then refused to restore the dune that is the best primary natural defense on the shoreline. The solution here is actually to protect the property rights. To that end, our village lobbyist should ensure that the state creates a cause of action to protect the integrity of the property rights of owners in the future that were neglected and harmed by the actions of a developer. This cause of action will be against the original developers for later property damage and harms that flow from developing right on the beach and on top of where there should have been a natural sand dune with plants on it to stabilize it. As it has been obvious for decades that it is irresponsible and negligent to develop on top of the sand dune, and that this is a proximate cause of harms to the property rights of future property owners. Accordingly, property owners who have been defrauded in this way should be able to review the record of development and recover from the developer indemnification for their negligent actions, including failing to restore a primary sand dune. Liability, of course, must attach to the developer for the life of the structure. Our current lobbyist was successful in getting the Burt-Harris Act passed. The developers have attempted to use against us, so now it would be great if he would turn his attention to protecting property rights for the long term and not just the short term. Note that unlike the proposals that were in the backup, this will cost the village taxpayers nothing. We don't need to fund the focus group or study because we already pay our lobbyists. And the results of taking this approach will be much more effective than a focus group would probably be, because the threat of litigation is very likely to get developers to stop building where they already know they should not. Prior council members Aaron Johnson, Kyle Stone, and Frank DeAmbra should not have blocked the Beach Road development hold. Because of that, we are in a much worse position today, because the major redevelopments we're seeing will not have primary sand dunes. But that is not a reason not to require a dune from this point on. A dune is the best choice for protecting property rights and values on the beach and across the village. The 3 recent developments all chose not to put in a dune when they could have done so, and in the full knowledge that it was the best option for protecting the shoreline and buildings. Their lawyer threatened us with litigation in a letter that stated no legal claim at all, so now you should work to make it so that their buyers can seek redress from them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other cards, Marianne? Okay, any other public comment? Yep, you can come up to the podium, please. You could just state your name and address again for the record.
Thomas Heller, Tequesta Towers, 400 Beach Road, the place that has the very high granite, if you will. Andy Stute of the Palm Beach County Beach Restoration Program made some comments about 4 or 5 weeks ago, which we thought, those of us who were there, were very key. Number one, he could not get his trucks past the border with Coral Cove to re-nourish the beach to the south. There wasn't enough of it there, not enough beach. So I would encourage you all to reach out to those folks and understand the impact of having something that would be that big. On the plus side of having something that big, we're zone 2 for evacuation and hurricanes. So I'll get Jeremy here some contacting people and things that you all may be able to learn from those folks. I'm not on the board, I'm just here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Is there actually is this someone that has dunes?
Is that the, yeah, yes.
Okay, so I think since we might be talking about, again, item 3 and especially 4, it's on the list, I think, for the AC, we can kind of chew on a little bit and then decide, if we end up want to add it to our strategic plan. And then I think when we have our strategic workshop, if we do add it, that's when we can kind of, hone in on exactly what action we want to take next. All right, moving on, agenda item 3, an update on the 23/24 strategic plan. Jeremy?
So from each year, for the last 3 years now, we do a strategic plan. And, you know, there's always a question about what's the difference between a strategic plan and a comprehensive plan. So comprehensive plan is typically a long-term approach on it. Strategic plan is a short-term, taking small bites of the apple, you know, maybe 1 to, could be up to 5 years. So when we put stuff on the strategic plan, doesn't mean it's, you know, get it done, it's off of 1 year. That some of these items might be 2 or 3 years. And as I go through the update of the strategic plan, you'll see some of these that will probably stay on. I even got some that's noted that might transition off. And so it's really, the idea is to get us to what do we want to be when we grow up. And so we're going to take small bites of the apple. Strategic plan has done that. But more than anything, and I've heard this saying probably 4 times in the last 2 weeks for some reason, is that, you know, strategic plan is just a document until you put a budget to it. And so this document has really been, this plan has really helped us from staff standpoint to budget appropriately, and you guys have found your guys' priorities, and we budget accordingly instead of just having a plan that sits on a shelf. So with that, we break it into 4 categories. This is the way, and you know, as we get into this year's strategic plan, it may be a 5th category or maybe 3, but we typically put them into these boxes and where they fall. In your backup, you will see that the initiatives line up under these categories. What I've done is I've unpacked it and went back to the way that we originally passed the strategic plan, which is, you know, how they were prioritized. And so I'm going to give an update of the priorities, how they came out when we did this last year, and so they'll be in order. So number 1 priority for the council this year was to move to 8-man shifts. We have done that. We budgeted for it. That is completed. That will be transitioned off. That's what that little 2 orange boxes means, that we can transition that off. We don't need to include that in the strategic plan again. Developments from Rimmers Park, it's not considered transitioned off because we are have bids coming in. We hope to start construction in May or June. There will be some consideration for council, you know, moving forward about, you know, when we will start phase 2 of that project. And I know a lot of it will depend on funding. Pursue state of Florida funding. We were told today, and today is the end of the conference for the budget, that we have been funded half of what we asked for. I think it was $680,000. We've been funded $342,000 in the current budget as it sits today. And so it's a win. We've been trying. This is the 3rd year we've tried, and so you know, we asked originally for $680,000. So far we've got half in the budget.
So disclaimer: the governor still needs
that's
to
what I was about
approve it.
I was you stole my thunder. Is that there still has to be, you know, there's still going to be a governor's pen for that. We will still advocate and even send. We're going to be sending some stuff to the governor's office, and I know Ken is up there, and he's already, you know, have a planned trip to the governor's office. I talked to him this afternoon. So advanced codes and ordinance consistent with master plans, you guys know, we've been working through that. That is set for LPA in March, council in April and May. Will be coming for adoption. Continue replacement of utilities infrastructure. Could go through all these. I have an update from Marjorie. If you want, I can go through this, or I guess circle back if you guys do want me to go through that. But we have several updates on a lot of projects that we have going, and so we're moving with these. That some of these we've been working on for a couple of years that we're really starting to make some progress with. Meet the unassigned fund balance. As you guys know, we've been working for this for a couple of years to try to get us back to where we were. This is one that we can probably transition off. Doesn't mean that we're not going to still hold to our policy, but we've got there. We've kind of hit our goal, and so we think we can transition off of that one. Conduct the physical analysis regarding the cost of burying power lines. We're going to be searching for a grant this year, so we budgeted $100,000 for this project. There is a grant for $75,000. That grant will open in the next couple months. We're estimating June, and so hopefully it looks like it's funded, that grant, at least at this point. Obviously, it's a competitive grant, and we'll have to apply and have to get funded for that. create and fund, purchase critical land areas that serve to maintain the village's distinct features, open. So this is one of them that, you know, we've had trouble getting there. I mean, one of the ideas, and this is before, we set the strategic plan before the bond, but the bond was one of the initiatives to try to get us more open space. And so this will be one that we probably need to have the discussion for at the strategic plan on moving forward. We do have some items in our master corridor plan to require some open space, green space. And so we do still have some mechanisms that we're working toward for that. Continue road maintenance plan, currently have $710,000 budgeted. We have a list of projects that we have that are coming in this year that will be coming to council in the next month, 2 months for approval. Expand tree planting efforts. Most of you guys have seen the flags up and down Tequesta Drive. We have phase 1 of that, reestablishing that tree canopy. We budgeted $75,000, so that is moving forward. Hopefully by the end of April we will see that. We are removing some invasive trees, some trees that have some fungus on them, some that are dying, and then we will be replacing with new trees. And then to formally establish a vehicle and replacement fund, $124,000 a year. This is our second year, so we have $249,000. I think our next vehicle's estimated at $480,000. So trying to align that'll be something that staff will bring you guys a recommendation for. Other priorities that were part of it is the sidewalk project. You guys know we do have a sidewalk project we're working through. And the other part of it is trying to get some ADA mats on the intersections, and I think Doug and his team have done a great job. Not only that, but also the maintenance of our sidewalks. We're able to, we have a sidewalk grinder that our team is able to go out and do some of those to help with maintenance. I think that'll help us long-term with some cost. Establish safe and quiet crossing. We discussed that late in 2023. It says April, May, but I think we're gonna have that on the agenda next week. We're going to have an item for council to direct staff on the quiet zone, the safe crossing. Annex properties square off Tequesta. This is one that's in red because we're obviously up against a pretty good mountain with this one. We've discussed this twice. I think we've had some public workshops. It hasn't went very far. There was no bills at the state level to consider this. Did through my committee try to push this. It didn't go very far. Mobility was the one that won out from the Florida League of Cities standpoint, which happens to be moving at this point, and I'll tee that one up in a second. Other priorities: maintain dog parks. I think we've done a lot better job this year. We just added some sod. We have hopefully a maintenance plan with our dog parks moving forward. We have some funding that we haven't previously funded, so I think we're doing a better job with the dog parks. A lot less complaints. Complete updating the comprehensive plan. This one's in orange because we've kind of just, the EAC has done their part. They made some recommendations. Staff does have to review it. We've been in this transition period, but talking with Jay, we are going to start to turn that over in this next year. I think we leave it on the strategic plan because I think it's still something that we want to consider. Improve communication with public on development. I think we've done a great job with, trying to find new ways to engage with the public. Coffee with Manager, Citizens Academy, Friday news, ordinance updates. If there's ever new ways of doing it, Lori and her team will find it. And so, I don't know that it needs to be an initiative. I think it's also hard to track, those things other than people see it and they do that, but it's hard to just put you're done with it. It'll always be something that we just keep in the forefront. Develop voluntary design guidelines for residential development. The state has passed a bill that preempts us from doing that. And so I don't know how much value it'll have to keeping that on there since we really don't have much authority with that. Development of Cypress property, we discussed that. We hold off on any major trail along there. However, if you have been over to the property, Doug and his team have cleaned that up. It looks great. I think we even did some planting on Cypress Drive itself and some of those medians, and so I think we've done a good job of just trying to invest a little bit in that area, and not necessarily with a lot of money, but just some time and some effort that we typically hadn't done in the past. So kudos to Doug and his team for trying to do that. Consider traffic safety solutions, reduce speeds in residential neighborhoods. I mean, we've done several analyses. Usually the speed falls within the, 85th percentile. I think that, some of the solutions, and we can talk about this in the strategic planning, if this is still a solution or a problem that council wants to tackle. I mean, we can look at, speed humps through some of the residential areas. It's a big ask, because a lot, you're talking about noise, when cars go over it in a residential neighborhood. We typically, we have a lot more, when we get a complaint, our officers are out there. We are, in the neighborhoods. So we can have that discussion. Seek initiatives to reduce the village's carbon footprint. As you guys know, water treatment plant, we have some upgrades there. That was our biggest user to help reduce some of our carbon footprint from the village standpoint. So that should remove 212 tons a year. And then number 9, improve background analysis, due diligence efforts for policy options agenda. I know that was an item that was brought up as an additional item in the strategic planning workshop. I haven't heard as many concerns of that. I think we've done a good job of trying to address those. If council wants to see more stuff, and they ask, we try to provide that, and we provide that to all the council, and try to include that in the backup as well. And so, we can have that discussion or direction from council when we get there. Mitigate the impact of US 1 bridge on local businesses. I think we've done a good job of really trying to communicate, trying to do some special events. I think the discussion for us will be trying to, change this position more to something like what Jupiter has, which is helping, businesses through the building department processes, trying to be more of a liaison, and not necessarily a special events person, which when we started out, that's kind of what it was. But we're 8 3/4 months away from the bridge opening up at least 2 lanes. So I think we, start looking at transitioning that position into, a different role. And then $65,000 budget in the CIP, planning, landscape, and traffic engineer for Old Dixie. We had some, I'll say, generic renderings that we have passed on to the county. We are waiting for word. Originally, when we talked to them, they were willing to, pay for half of that cost. They're in the middle of trying to put together their 5-year road program. So at this point, they're still kind of non-committal to that half of the 65,000. They have said that even if they did fund the 65,000, the actual project would have to be funded through either TPA or maybe even the 5-year. I know Doug took another shot at them and trying to get them to put that into their 5-year plan as well. So we are working on that. We haven't committed to 65,000 because we're still waiting on, half if we can get that. As the strategic plan, is coming forward, March 26th is our strategic plan workshop. Urge you guys to review the comprehensive plan, because that's ultimately where we want to get to. Review the community survey, which you guys have been sent, and then review the strategic plan that we currently have, because some of those items will stay on there. And then, you're going to be recommended new initiatives that gets us to where we want to go. We want to align those with our community goals, prioritize those initiatives. I think that was one that we did for the first time last year, is we actually prioritized them, as you guys see, and I think that helped staff when I was budgeting to be able to align those and make sure we gave the most emphasis to the top ones. So, and then develop action plans. So once you guys give us those initiatives, staff will sit down and we'll break those down on how we get there to those initiatives. It may be a multi-year approach, but we will develop a plan. And then we budget for those. Like I said, it's just the document that sits on a shelf unless we actually put it to the budget. And so that might be a single or multi-year approach depending on the cost. Just a couple items that, as you guys are going to gear up for that, I mean, some of the things that we really need to, from just high level at this point, our infrastructure, we still need some, stormwater needs to be addressed, our fund for that. And that could, I kind of put it in 2 categories, because it could be the financial stability of the village. The stormwater fund is something that needs to be addressed. We do have the bridge. Obviously, the roads and sidewalks are still on the strategic plan, so these are kind of new things outside of what we have on the strategic plan today. But also the future facilities plan. We have we're pretty grown right now. Most of our facilities are pretty tapped out. You know, our water and our public works facility is completely full out there. We have Station 11. We have the water plant. Can we, you know, looking at facilities in the future, I think that's something that we need to look at for a plan, how we move forward. So something to consider, something that'll be up for discussion during that strategic plan. CIP funding, you know, the loss of the surtax funds, we've been talking about that for a couple of years now, probably 3 or 4. I think it's real. I mean, I don't think we're going to have those funds. I mean, that's over $500,000 loss that we will have at the end of 2025. It'll go through December 31st of 2025. The county has basically said they're not going to renew it, and they're not going to put that on a ballot. So that money will be going away. We need to figure out how we're going to implement or substitute that revenue. Also, additional loss of revenue that we could be looking at is the homestead exemptions that the state is looking at to put on the ballot for the state. That I think we've estimated a $350,000 hit to the budget. That probably wouldn't take effect till like 2026 if it passed the voters in Florida, which I can imagine it will. The other thing that's being kind of chipped away is the business tax receipts. I gotta get the update on that, but as last time I checked, you know, they were gonna freeze our revenues for that. We typically make about $90,000 a year. They're going to look at freezing our revenue, so we can't bring any more or any more than $90,000. But my guess is that next year that'll be back, and they're going to take it away. The idea was they were trying to take it away altogether this year. I think moving forward, you know, it's capped at 90,000 or capped at whatever our number is. But I think next year they'll come back and try to remove the whole thing. And of course, stormwater fund. Then moving up to the top right. Mobility plan, you know, that's something we tried to apply for a grant last year with mobility plan, knowing that this was coming at some point in order to collect those impact fees. They're basically saying that either the municipality that is collecting the impact fees will keep the impact fees instead of sending those to the county. The county still may choose to, you know, do an impact fee too, so the developers might be getting hit on both sides, but the municipality is allowed to collect impact fees because it affects us the most. But in order to do that, we'll probably have to have a study, and we'll have to, you know, have a plan for how we will collect those and what those funds will go toward. We will try to look at a grant again for those, leaning forward a little bit. And then the last one is the green space, open space. You know, something you guys will have to consider and be a good discussion on the 26th would be Remembers Park Phase 2, Tequesta Park appropriations. If they've only funded half, the you know, obvious thing is we need to fund the other half. And so we'll have to have that discussion on, you know, how we get there. We do have $250,000 set aside for grant matching, but I know, and I'm going to quote the mayor, is value engineer it. We're going to try to value engineer and seeing what, you know, talk with the, you know, the engineer to see if we can get that cost down, and or look at another firm to see if we can reduce those fees a little bit. So with that, I think you know, really just the action plan tonight was just to give you an update. I know at one point we were doing like every 3 months trying to do that. With this being online, everybody can see the status of it. You know, we kind of went away from doing it every 3 months. However, just to kind of remind everybody to look at the comprehensive plan, look at the current strategic plan, citizen survey, and on March 26th be able to come with some thoughts that you have for discussion. And if you need any information on anything, I'd be more than happy to submit that.
Thank you. And I obviously tonight we're not going in any detailed discussion on this. I mean, do you want anything from us tonight? Any kind of feedback, or we'll just?
No, but I'll take it. But I wasn't looking for anything. Just more than anything, just giving you guys the heads up that it's coming and to really start thinking about it.
A high level.
Just a question on things that are happening now that we're at the tail end of session. The water surcharge, would that make it, or are we? Is it still in there at 25% extraterritorial water?
I don't think it made the last committee that I'm aware of. I haven't heard much more of it. Let me get you an update on it. There's so many moving parts right now. It's hard to keep up with all of them. But I don't think that I think it kind of stopped moving on one side or the other.
Yeah, I read the last update.
Molly may know. She
keeping 25%.
She helps me follow.
We tagged her. There's so much going on. I know on the Monday morning update today, they did not bring that up, and I think the
Right.
local business tax, like, I think that died too. I haven't seen, especially in the Senate, there hasn't been any movement on that, so we might get lucky on those too. But yeah, the homestead ones keep plugging away, as well as the, I think it has to be a unanimous vote to raise the millage rate, that one's plugging away
Yeah,
too.
now it's just
So
still
again, that
supermajority.
goes, like, when we talk about this, if those pass with the loss of the surtax funds, I'll give you guys an update from that meeting with the county at our council meeting next week. But yeah, we're really gonna have to start
Right.
thinking about how it's gonna impact us.
Thanks.
High level, great job by staff to get us to where we are today, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming strategic plan meetings.
Two things I can think of. So you said $500,000 on the surtax money. Is that per annum or
Yeah,
over
annually.
time?
Annually, it's $500,000 a year we get from the surtax. It's really grown, and I think it's grown because of the e-sales tax probably has helped push that number up. I think when I got here, when we were talking about like 275,000 or some number, and year over year. Of course, we had a little bit of a hiccup during the COVID time, but we're up to $500,000 a year in that revenue for that source.
And that reference you made to the referendum, I guess you would call it, state, that was to go from 3% Save Our Homes to 2%?
No, the reference is that the state is wanting to put it on the ballot to raise the homestead exemption from 25 to 50,000, 25,000 to 50,000 for homestead exemption. So, for a homeowner, I think it's very valuable. I think you'll get a lot of support. I mean, everybody loves that. I mean, right? Like, I'm kind of torn because, for me, I want my homestead exemption to increase, but that's going to hurt a lot of municipalities too. And, so we just have to be mindful. I mean, I think the voters will decide, and likely it will happen. So from our standpoint, knowing that we're going to be missing out on probably estimated $300,000 on that.
Well, what happened to I thought the Florida legislature passed a bill in 2023 that changed the Save Our Homes from 3% to 2%.
That never passed.
It never passed?
No, it died at the end, I think.
Okay,
And
well,
another thing right now is they want to tie the percentage to fluctuate with the CIP, which again will make it very difficult for municipalities to project out, because no one would thought what would have happened in their economy when COVID hit, right? So if there's some kind of event like that, how it's hard for municipalities to project that far ahead if it's going to fluctuate.
Yeah.
So that one's moving too. So those are all kind of big ones that we're gonna have to deal with if they pass.
Last question, maybe Jay, if you don't know, Jeremy, when does our village comprehensive plan have to be, have its update finished?
So in 2023, February of 2023, we sent a letter to the state that we were not making any major changes to the comprehensive plan. And so that renews it for 5 years. Doesn't mean we can't, individually go through and from time to time, make an amendment to the comprehensive plan. But in 2023, it was due. And so we sent a letter to the state saying we didn't have any major changes to that. Obviously, I know EAC was working through some recommendations, but the timing of it, we had to send a letter for that.
So haven't you been asking us, EAC, others, to look at the plan for changes? And if so, I mean, it's like, what, 4 years down the road, right?
Right.
Wow. That was a lot of work on the EAC's part.
Well, I don't think that initiative is a bad one. It doesn't mean that we still can't lean forward on some of those recommendations, as far if there's code changes, whatever, and I'd have to look at them. I mean, living shoreline was something in that comp plan. We're moving forward with that. So, as far as updating that plan, from at a state level, we didn't want to tackle $100,000 consultant to update our comp plan at the time, because you guys hadn't finished through that. We had to do some major work to get it to that point. the last time it was updated was like 2018, which made February 2023 the date.
Okay.
When we first started that in defense, when we first started that initiative and the EAC was kind of working through that comp plan, I didn't know the date that it was due. It was something that, you know, we had to either tell them we were gonna keep the plan with no significant changes, or we had to tell them that we were going to go through the whole comp plan update process.
Okay.
Oh, just thank you for the update. I know we'll get into the weeds of it at our workshop, and it comes right after the spring break. So just to my fellow council members, not that you wouldn't, just read those survey comments. Those are always my favorite, the open comments. I love how honest our residents can be. And yeah, just be open-minded, because I think we might have to get creative, because I know Mr. Sartori has mentioned and our mayor has mentioned we might have big budget items to be looking to fill that won't be coming our way. So and we have fire negotiations this year. And yep, might have another creative year. And that's all. Thanks for the update.
Just a quick question on the comp plan. So is it just look at EAC, or I know, you know, Jay's caught some things that might need updating, so it's not going to be just EAC, it'll be collectively. All right.
Yeah, when we get ready to renew this, you know, and really, I think the EAC part of it, I think there's small pieces that, you know, I think we want to update ultimately, but like I said, I think there's things that we can do in the short term with some of their recommendations, making sure that we're addressing. But when we get ready to, you know, probably do a full turn of the comp plan, I mean, we're talking public engagement, and, you know, when you do a full comp plan update, you're going to want to get, you know, workshops and things like that. So it'll be everything.
Okay.
So, Mayor, may I just let you know, the EAC looked at every element of the comp plan to make at the goals, objectives, and priorities from an environmental perspective. So we have looked at it all, but it's from the focus of the environment.
Yep, I've read a lot of it. I do look
Oh,
at your
yeah?
agendas.
Oh, okay.
No, you guys, I mean, it was many meetings. I mean, you guys were working on it for a long time.
Tell me about it.
No, it's like, it's a process, and I think, you know, we're doing that, we can capture anything else, and like Jeremy said, go through the, you know, public workshop, you know, meetings and stuff to update. Because, I mean, correct me, if you can make like one update, can't you? You don't have to wait the whole, but like if you're doing a major overhaul, it's on that cycle, but can't you do, like if we found something that we thought was so critical, could we do an update?
Oh yeah, you can
That's
do
what I thought.
you can
So
do
you're
an
not-
amendment. Since I've been here, we've done a couple, 2 or
60
3
days or
as
something.
I think one
Yeah.
was like Parkland. I think, you know, we did some level of service for Parkland was one of them, and I think, you know, we made a change to the comp plan. We have to send a letter to the state. They, you know, they amend that for us.
Yeah, so if there's anything we end up finding that we think is super critical, we don't want to wait, we could go for that amendment. Okay. All right, any public comment? All right, moving on. Agenda item 4, the EAC recommendations for the 2024-25 strategic plan.
Hi, good evening, Jessica Namath, Chair of the EAC, and I'm just here to answer any questions you guys might have. I think you've all seen them, and those are our recommendations to include the living shoreline, promote and educate on commercial recycling, fertilizer education, pursue green building certification through LEED, and coastal development education. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them
Thank you.
in an unruly manner.
I'm waiting for my screen, it won't come up.
It's up behind you on the
Oh, okay.
I have a question for Jeremy. We actually, in the past, have discussed commercial recycling with some of our shopping center owners. Is that what the EAC is referencing? And if it is, it was at a big cost to them. So it was kind of up to the shopping center owner to go into that contract with the recycling company.
Yeah,
Is that
I don't
right?
want to, I mean, if you have any comments, Jessica, I mean, feel free. I think, you know, when we talked about the EAC, that conversation came up, and I think, you know, the direction was, educate those shopping centers that there is an avenue that they can recycle. How do they get there? I think, and Jesse, you can elaborate if
That's
you
fine,
want.
so it's really just more of a educating them that it's available, this is who they contact, okay, roger that.
In this context, I'm not a big fan of the word educate as opposed to inform, because using the word educate implies that there are people out there who are uneducated. So I don't like that. I know what the intent was, but I would prefer inform over educate. And then, you know, I'm big on expanding the tree canopies. Is that something that we can deal? You know, we have these 5 from the EAC. Can that subject be delved into when we have this meeting at the end of the month with the consultant?
Isn't it already on there, that was a previous strategic agenda?
Yeah, it's on there already, and then
Right.
the council will decide if they want to keep it on there, work toward phase 2, you know, and then we budget accordingly. So I think that'll be part of the discussion. Typically with that meeting, similar kind of format, we'll kind of tee up what's on there, and then, you know, the consultant's going to call you guys prior to that meeting, get your guys' feedback, and then that way it'll help start the conversation and bring the tree canopy up, and, you know, any of the ones that are already on that.
Yeah, there were quite a few items. Were there more than 5 that are already on the strategic agenda?
There's some environmentally, like carbon footprint was one that the EAC kind of tackled, and, you know, part of that conversation, and the tree canopy, if that's what you're referencing.
Yeah,
There's a couple on there.
there were a few that were, and it was my understanding that they were kind of rolling projects, that we were continuing to include those as well as these.
Okay. Is Living Shoreline coming before the council this month or next month or soon, right?
It's gonna come after the commercial code. So we're doing commercial code at LPA in March, and then we'll do living shorelines at LPA in April. So it'll lag a month behind the commercial code.
Okay.
So just my 2 cents real quick. I think these are all great initiatives, but these are to be recommended put on our strategic plan. And my opinion is I don't know if, you know, education or information is something that should be on a strategic initiative plan. I think our strategic initiatives should be something that is really tangible that we're working towards, like, you know, what we just went through. So the ones that really stick out to me that would be more of a tangible item to put on the plan are the green building. It's pursue green building certification's wrong terminology there, but just kind of green building incentives, what we can do. And then the coastal resiliency we talked about already tonight. I think those are good, like, tangible items that we could actually take some action on. And the information, like, I think those are great, but I don't know if, you know, sending out some information in our newsletters is something necessarily to put on our strategic plan.
Mayor, are you saying you don't think we can take action on Living Shoreline?
Oh, we already are, I guess so. I guess we could put it on the plan, but that's kind of a done deal.
Okay.
So sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I overlooked that because we're going to be done with that.
Yeah, so even for this, there's no action tonight, but consider these as we have the March 26th strategic workshop. Consider these when I said comprehensive plan, current strategic plan, survey, and then you have these items to consider as well.
Well, even if we were all for the promotion of information education for recycling, commercial, fertilizer education, what's the other one? Coastal development education. I mean, even if we approved it and it was going to happen and it was in the the strategic plan, wouldn't we want EAC to be the driving creator of those informational documents that might show up on the website, or they might show up on the, what's that thing, smoke signals? Is that more than likely? So what I'm getting at is, even though these may not be technically items, some of them items for a strategic plan, that be something that the EAC does in conjunction with your staff to make that be widely distributed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And did we do fertilizer education in the past, or was that pesticide education? I can't remember. We've done one or the other.
We are, but it's been up in legislation, you know, there's been a lot, and I think that, again, we were proud that we have one of the strongest fertilizer ordinances because we have those dates, and I think what we're coming from too here is just trying to tie in for people like the fishermen, how the runoff from things like that affects their fishing by being some of the things that kill the seagrass beds, for example, or, you know, having education for people and motivating them to actually follow through with some of the things that are out there, because I think that's obviously the problem with a lot of these. We can create the regulations, but it's hard to follow sometimes, unless we understand why and have a reason to or care enough to do so, you know? So that's always, and these are all things too, I know that we have a lot of people coming from up north, you know, and things like the recycling, you know, that's something I hear from food trucks all the time, from people constantly asking about recycling, and even some of the business owners. And so the PR side of me just likes handling that, just because I think that that's something that's, you know, they do these days. So helping in any way we can facilitate that, I think, is, you know, good for business, good for us, that sort of thing, good for the environment, you know.
And a quick question is for Jeremy, for staff. So, like the green building initiatives, because you guys are still working on that. You're not even done with your research. So, how, if it made it onto our strategic initiative plan, because usually those are action for staff, but would EAC, like, how would that work if EAC is still working on it?
I mean, I think you can put it on there if the council has a desire to do that. If council says they don't like the idea, then maybe we don't even task the EAC with it.
Right.
I mean, so I think it needs to be a discussion, and I think in something like that, like I know they had somebody come over and present about the certification program, so that's why it says pursue the certification program, if that's something council wants to do, or pursue initiatives that are, you know, incentive program, like whatever that is, have that discussion at the March workshop, and I think we should include that, because I think it's tangible. We're either gonna have incentives, or we're gonna have a certification, or neither. And so I think that one is something that's tangible if council wants to go down that route.
I also think that's something, like, if we're pursuing coastal resiliency or out talking to people, having that kind of a thing also, I think, shows our commitment to the cause, you know. It's another kind of good look, good gesture, you know, type of a thing, in my opinion, you know.
I guess, so my question was, so if we add it, say council decides to add that, EAC would still continue their work. Staff wouldn't take it over right away. You would still let them finish their,
Right.
the work that they're doing. Okay, that was my question.
Same thing like with Mr. Bradford's talking about, like if there's a recycling, education, or information thing, I mean, I think EAC can still do some of those things. It's kind of their recommendation. I think they can still tackle those, send it to staff or the newsletters, and, you know, create that information. I think we can still have it on the strategic plan, or not, but still direct staff or direct EAC to do those things.
Okay. Any other council comments?
Nope.
No?
No.
You're good? Okay. Thank you, Jessica.
Yep.
Any public comment? No? All right. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.